Cool, man. Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? We are here. How you doing, Rob? I think, Rob, you're muted, pal.
Yeah, we'll do it live. We're gonna do it live.
We are live right now. How's it going?
Okay. I'm doing well.
Good.
Thank you. That's great. I was enjoying the music to that trailer, which everybody bigs up. And I always forget to credit the guy that did it, who's fantastic. His name is Zaylan Trallis. He did. How did I find him? Do you know this project named? It's on Indiegogo as well, and it's one of the really cool looking ones. It's sort of like an H.P. Lovecraft sort of vibe, but it's sea related, but it's on hiatus.
Are you talking about Longmire?
Yeah, Long Harbor.
Long Harbor. That's it.
Yeah.
I have to apologize for Simon for a second. I went to kick off the video and I kicked him out. So sorry about that, Simon.
Okay. Yeah, but so he cut the trailer for that, and I tracked him down, and he did this, and I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you so much for having me at this proper hour for me, because every other live stream that I've been doing, I've been like my protagonist, I've been like a zombie.
No, absolutely. It
starts at 3 a.m. and I'm like trying to muster up enthusiasm for my project. It's like, yeah, you should check it out, guys.
Well, it happens, yeah. And I mean, I try to accommodate people as best as we can. On Saturdays, that's usually pretty easy.
I appreciate it. Really, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So how's it going, Simon?
I'm doing fine.
Thanks for coming back. Sorry about that.
No, it's always a pleasure. The project was good. I was going through the campaign a bit earlier. You got 92% funded. Looking good.
Yeah, it definitely does look good. You want to tell us a little bit about your project, Rob?
Yeah. I mean, what do you want to know? The pitch, the how it came about?
Why don't we start with the pitch and then we'll just start probing.
Okay, so the pitch is it takes place in a world where there's no humans. It's just monsters, and humans are sort of like we're like the figments of their imaginations, and
Okay.
And so that's the premise. And in this world, we're centered around this teenage zombie named Rob, who goes to this high school that's only for zombies, an all-zombie high school called Romero High. And he's sort of like a Ferris Bueller character there who can do no wrong. Everybody loves him, no matter what he does. He can get away with everything. The teachers all go, "Oh, you're amazing." The girls are obsessed with him. The boys want to be him. And yeah, he's just a king of Romero. And then one day, his dad gets a potential promotion. He's a janitor, and he gets to be the head janitor. And he decides to take the job offer after a family meeting, and they move to the big city. And Rob transfers over to this high school named Cthulhu High that's multi-species, meaning
It's got to be
there's
a big
wolfmen.
adjustment.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment. It's there's wolfmen, there's vampires, there's every single monster that you know of is crammed in there. It's a multicultural experiment, basically. And he gets a rude awakening upon finding out that zombies are treated as sort of like subspecies by all other monsters, pretty much. They're bottom of the totem pole when it comes to the social strata. And yeah, not only that, he has to deal with Cthulhu's own most popular kid, this guy named Drake, who's a vampire, who sort of Rob lands on his radar, and he decides to make his life miserable. And life, I'm not sure if you'd call it, well, his lack of life miserable.
His afterlife.
His afterlife miserable, exactly. His undeath or whatever. So yeah, I mean that's the premise of the book. This is the first book in potentially multiple installments, and I want to make this a long, like a franchise, something that goes on and potentially lives outside of the comic book space.
Yeah, man.
But let's see how it goes. It's going sort of slow, but this is for me. This is sort of like a proof of concept, and it's a learning experience more than anything else. And if it doesn't do gangbusters, I'm not going to slip my wrists or anything. I'm going to go. I'm still going to go for round 2.
Yeah, well, I think you're doing pretty well. I mean, you're 92% funded already. That's not bad.
Yeah. I mean, but the goal, I sort of lowballed it because I wanted to blast through it like very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sort of like lurching along toward my goal. Right now, my actual goal is to reach 3,000, which is my first stretch goal, which unlocks a 2-page story by this guy named. Well, the story's by me, but the art is done by this guy named Tad Lambert, who's fantastic. And I'm so confident and hopeful that we're going to reach that goal that I already commissioned him to do this story. It's just waiting. It's waiting for your support, guys.
And talking about the art, I really like the cartoon art in this book.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, for sure. Can you tell us about your team?
So the team is this really talented penciler named Sebastian Bronico. He's done a number of different things. You can check out his a bio over there. But the way that I got hooked up with him was this project is actually like a decade old almost. And it was originally slated to be published by this well-known independent publisher, but that fell on hard times. And midway through the process of the development of the comic, they sort of folded. And I thought that was that. I was disappointed, for that to happen. But then a number of years go by. I got busy with other things. But my son was born, and my wife kept telling me, he would love for you to retake the mantle and do something with that comic book. So don't just let it die. Such a cool idea. You should really do something with it. And she just kept yammering. And thank you. I have to thank her for it because I'm very glad that I did take her up on her offer. And the fact is that my kid is obsessed with it. He's my number one fan. That's so it's fulfilling, even just in that sense alone. Even if it doesn't turn out to be anything else, I'll be happy that he keeps asking me questions about the characters. And there's these Instagram stories that I cooked up for promotional purposes, and he's listening to them on repeat. So it's funny.
No, that's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, for sure. I'm finding a lot of projects, when you talk to people, a lot of them have been like a decade or more in the making. It's just this Comicsgate really opened up an opportunity that wasn't there before for a lot of people. I think that's really cool.
And
so
we do need more books that are more like family oriented, you could say, like all ages. That really looks like an all ages story, and we don't have that many in CG.
It's all yeah, you're right. It's all ages, but there's some suggestive themes in the thing. So I would feel more comfortable to say 13 and up. But to be honest with you, I grew up in the 80s. I watched a whole lot edgier things when I was a kid back then. So it's just I leave it to the parents' discretion.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with PG-13.
Nope.
And I think a lot of us were watching, PG-13 and R long before we should have. So,
Right? Yeah, yeah. And PG-13 these days isn't the same thing as RPG-13.
right.
When we were growing up, stuff like Gremlins would have gotten an R almost these days. Or Temple of Doom. You remember Temple of Doom? That's what changed things actually,
Yep.
because that was all ages. And you see people like getting hearts ripped out of their chests, and this guy eating the heart, and
People melting.
people melting. It's just like it's pretty gross in that sense. And that's the movie that sort of they went like, all right, we got to change things up. And PG-13 was invented
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because
for
it was
sure.
either all ages or rated R.
Yeah, and
They had-
Die Hard became a #1 Christmas movie for families.
Yeah, of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, take a second, say hello to the chat. James Hayes dropped by early, as he always does, dropping links. Appreciate you, brother. Drew, aka Mr. E, is here. That is the proprietor of Captain Love. If you haven't checked that out, please do. That looks like an awesome book.
Yep.
We got Jason Black in the chat. What's up, my friend? Good to have you. And Valnid just joined us. Hello, hello. We're talking about Tales from the Classroom with Rob here. And Rob, can you tell us a little bit about how you came upon Comicsgate? What drew you to it?
So Comicsgate. So I grew up reading comics, and I was obsessed with comics for a very good chunk of my life. And then I sort of, I wouldn't say grew out of them, but distanced myself from them with Bendis's encroachment on Marvel initially.
Mhm.
That'll do it.
Yeah, because all of a sudden he became sort of I'm not a fan of his to begin with. I liked his Daredevil run, but that's about it. Everything else, people are saying how his dialogue is amazing. I don't think his dialogue is realistic at all. Humans don't speak like that. But and I think that every single he just disrespected the integrity of characters. You know what I mean?
Right.
For the sake of marketability, wouldn't it be cool to have Spider-Man and the Avengers Man, and
They do something totally out of character.
and totally out of character that just doesn't fit, but he doesn't give a shit because he just wants to let his own voice. You're really listening to Bendis every time with his characters. There's no differentiation, It's Thor as Bendis.
Yeah, that's
Spider-Man
that's become a real problem in the comic book industry. A lot of self-insertion,
Right.
especially on the writer end.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to thank him in a sense because that was my first disillusionment with mainstream comic books. But it helped me discover DC in a way that I hadn't before. I negged Marvel and went full on to DC and really immersed myself very heavily for about 2-3 years. I'm very glad that I did, because these days I think DC is my favorite publisher. At least I respect that they try to keep the continuity of the universe very tight. That's why they have to reboot it every 3 seconds, because every single time there's an inconsistency, somebody pulls the reboot plug.
Right. Can't have that.
Can't have that. Got to reboot it. But what? But then I also Final Crisis is. I made it up to Final Crisis. It got too weird with Final Crisis for me, and then I just sort of grew out of comics for a little bit, and then I got wind of. I think it was EVS first that I got wind of, or some article about your boy Zach and Comicsgate, and I got really annoyed initially because everything's a gate these days,
Right.
and they try to make some big conspiratorial movement out of everything, Gamergate, everything's gate. But then the more I dug into this Comicsgate thing, and I got exposed to EVS and to your boy Zach and a few others, the more, well, first of all, I aligned myself completely ideologically with what they were saying, but I didn't realize just how bad it had become since my leaving comics. I was sort of like right at the beginning of this encroachment of the SJW hordes into the comic book space. And I remember the first time I was sort of like, 10 years ago or whatever it was, when I was trying to, my comic book was developing, and I was like doing some meet and greets with comic book people, that I was meeting individuals that I found really strange, because you could tell they couldn't give a shit about comics,
Yeah.
but they were in the industry. Oh, this is such and such. He's working on, such and such title. And it was like, pretty prominent titles. And I'm like, really? And then I tried to like speak to him about comics. And you could tell like, this person really is, I could feel almost a certain degree of disdain, So I thought that was a little weird, but I didn't make much of it. And then with the advent of hindsight, and in retrospect, I realized what that was. That was the vanguard, basically, of what would come to be the SJW. I don't like SJW either. That's another term I don't like. The neo-Marxist, the neo-Marxist.
I called them extremists.
Cul-de-sac, of the comic book industry, and it's too bad these days. And even like from a purely objective, materialistic point of view, you look at the comics these days, and they're objectively worse than they used to be. Like the printing quality, I was shocked when I went to my local comic book store. I was like, "This is Marvel,"
Yeah,
This is what Marvel would never print a book like this, like back in my day, And it's not just
Right.
Marvel. DC's only slightly better. The only place where you can find proper print jobs is in hardcovers and the omnibuses and the deluxe editions. Otherwise, it's toilet paper.
Right.
Quality.
Going to interrupt you for just a sec, Rob. I want to introduce some more people coming into the chat. Kermit the Log is with us. Kermit is awesome. If you haven't subscribed to him, you should do so.
I will.
Black Daddy's in the house. Hail, brother.
Yeah.
Got Lothar D joining us. What's up, my friend? El Gargoyle. I love El Gargoyle. Thanks for coming, buddy. Lethal Lightning is here to sexually harass me as usual. And we got the milkman in the house, Dan Marshall. How's it going, my friend?
Hello, brother.
Sorry about that. Rob, continue, please.
Well, I don't know where I was. Sorry.
Sorry.
So like I came back and it's just like all the pieces, I put the pieces together, and I was like, not only do I align myself, just the very premise of Comicsgate I align myself with, but the more I discovered and how objectively true the people, what people were talking about was, then, I'm all in completely. But obviously there was a certain reticence on my end to openly come out as Comicsgate, because there's a certain stigma associated with it.
Right.
But in the end, I think you have to make the plunge and be true to yourself.
And that's what it's all about.
And honestly, anybody that does it, we already had the vanguards, and that's why they're doing so well. To be honest with you, EVS and your boy Zach and Malin and all, and those three, I think primarily. When they took the plunge, they actually had something very serious to lose. They had their families at stake. They had their well-beings at stake. Their careers. They were being, well, not so much your boy Zach, but like definitely Ethan Van Sciver and Malin. They were working for the mainstream comic book industry. They got blacklisted, and they knew they were going to get blacklisted by aligning themselves with Comicsgate. And yeah, they opened the doors for people like us, and it's whoever comes out and says that they're Comicsgate, they're not really sacrificing as much as those guys. That's why we're indebted to them.
Yeah, that's very true. And a lot of people get a little butthurt over the fact that there are professionals doing what they're doing in Comicsgate. You know, a lot of times they get accused of trying to take over the movement and yada yada. But I mean, as you said, if it weren't for them, a lot of these doors wouldn't have been opened for small creators.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You know, I'm still a little iffy about like you know, any movement needs an ideology and an idea, and I can understand the idea, the basic premise of we don't want politics, we don't want overtly ideological books. We make books for everybody, right? But by taking that stance, then your movement becomes too porous to nefarious influence. You know what I mean? People were joining just to take advantage of it, or even to just corrupt it and from the inside. You know, SJWs. If you're open to everybody, you should be open to SJWs. But you know, I think there needs to be some kind of limitations built into it. You know.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
But yeah, who am I to say?
You're a guy with an opinion, and that's
a guy with an opinion. Yeah, that's it. And a glass of wine.
Yeah, that's all any of us are, except for, you know, have a glass of rum. But hey, to each their own. So you were talking about you came upon Von Klaus, Von MD earlier. I imagine you, really identified with that.
Well, first of all, he's been amazing. He's really shepherded me and guided me through this whole crowdfunding space. He's been incredibly helpful. But even before that, much before that, I ran across his book and I thought, wow, if this is the level of quality that the crowdfunding space is dealing with, then screw the mainstream. You know, we really don't need the mainstream for anything.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
but it's not, it's not everything is to that level. But as I become more familiar with what's going on and all the projects that are sort of brewing or out there already, there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of good stuff, especially because there's people that are, because of the internet, you can find really high quality artists that really give a sheen of a deluxe sheen to your product, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's happening more and more. The difference of quality between the mainstream, what you get in the mainstream, and what you're getting in the crowdfunding space and the independent comic book scene is becoming slimmer and slimmer, I feel. And a lot of the things that interest me the most are in the indie comic scene these days. It's funny because for me, it was either superheroes or bust before, you know?
Yeah.
And now I can't stomach any more superheroes because as the mass culture has adopted them, they've really lost their luster for me. Their appeal, you know?
It's getting to the point where you identify superheroes with SJW values.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I read this 2-page, it was actually really well written, but saying all the wrong things. It was like the Red Skull, saying all these things that are, you know, perfectly, you know, normal, middle of the road, right-leaning positions, you know, about border security and about, you know, stuff like that. And it was being sold. This speech was being, you know, sold to us as being a Nazi position, you know, on a Captain America issue somewhere. I was like, if you'd taken that and put it on taken the speech bubble and put it on Captain America 10 years ago, I wouldn't have batted an eye. And all of a sudden, it's being put on Red Skull and branded as a neo-Nazi stance, you know?
Right.
Have you seen this? I gotta show you this thing. I'll find it somewhere. Maybe I'll share the screen. But yeah, I don't want to like waylay the conversation.
Oh no, you're good, man.
Red Skull speech. Let me see. Oh, it's this. I found it. Shall I share screen or just share the link with you?
Oh, either whatever you prefer. You can share the screen right quick if you want.
Okay. Let me see. Share screen. Share screen. Now, where's the thing? We grow in number each time. These so-called refugees, millions of them, marching across the continent, bringing their fanatical beliefs and their crime with them. They attack our women and bomb our cities. And how do our leaders respond? Do they push them back and enforce the borders, as is our sovereign duty? Of course not. They say, here, take our food, take our shelter, take our way of life, and then take our lives. Despicable. So it is good to be here where some men still know how to fight. When I was a young man, there was a great war and our two countries did not see eye to eye. But all the sides, well, this is obviously Nazi shit, but protecting the land through strength, preserving the heritage and culture of the people, offering them opportunity. Now look at the world today. Look here at the dead husk that was these United States, how the mighty have fallen. Who is protected, I ask you? On my flight, I was briefed about these brave patriots fighting the government's illegal claims to their lands. Who does the land belong to if not the people? This is who your government sees as the transgressors. What about the criminal trespassers who make a mockery of our borders? No, they are protected, of course, but that is only the beginning. Your entire culture is under siege. The principles your country was all right. Some of this stuff is pretty heavy, but it's not like out and out Nazi. For me, it's a perfectly legitimate position for you to have.
Right. Yeah. That's
for you to.
That's the idea.
For you to like all of a sudden like you wanting to preserve your own culture and have some modicum of preservation of national heritage and your own culture, all of a sudden that's viewed as a Nazi position and it's sold as a Nazi position. That's not at all what Nazis were about. They were about the purity of the species and actually killing everybody that wasn't.
No, now a Nazi is just being a conservative.
Yeah, basically.
Right. And honestly, that's what that is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Presenting it in a comic as, an actual Nazi giving a conservative position. Well, look, conservatives are Nazis.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy, man.
It is. It's ridiculous.
Like if you'd put those speech bubbles and it was Captain America saying it in the 70s, nobody would have batted an eye.
No, because it makes sense, but because they attach it to Red Skull, it's not supposed to make sense. You see,
right?
Yeah, that's part of the insidiousness of these people.
It's true, man, and it's all over the place. It really is. Here's the thing with Comicsgate people I'm glad that there's this pushback, and a lot of the main players seem to be very confident that there's going to be a turnaround in the culture, that this pushback is just, it's the beginning of people fight. I'm more pessimist, actually. I think this is the beginning of a neo-Marxist overthrow of our ideological foundations.
I don't know. See, I used to hold that same pessimism, but and especially being, doing this Comicsgate thing day in and day out, and maybe it's just a small window of things, but I have become more optimistic, honestly. It just seems like more people are becoming less and less afraid to actually speak what they're thinking, So I think there's going to continue to be pushback, and I think it's going to grow. I mean, maybe that's just my hope, but that's what I'm seeing, and I like it.
Am I still sharing my thing, man? Stop sharing.
You are, but I took you off.
All right, cool. So that's my political leanings put out in the open. But like I said, I'm only interested in the comic book spirit, in the Comicsgate spirit. I'm only interested in doing great comics, and I don't think that there's a lot of that ideology seeping into this book. This book is fairly apolitical.
Yeah, and that's the idea. That's what people are sick of. That's the whole. I know it gets says all the time, but man, it's escapist entertainment. That's the whole point, to escape from this bullshit that we have to deal with every day.
Mhm.
So when you start putting this crap into the escapist entertainment, kind of defeats the purpose. Kind of makes you want to not, get get rid of it, not take a look, not even care. Like Star Wars is the same way. The MCU is going the same direction here shortly. And that's what I really like
That
about
scene.
Comicsgate. These.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
you're good, man.
I was just thinking of that scene at the end of Endgame with all the women. It's like it was beyond parody. When things become so ludicrous, it's beyond parody.
Yeah,
If you wanted to make a parody of that thing, it wouldn't be as stupid as the real thing. That's what that scene was. All of a sudden, like all these women together for no other reason than they share a gender.
but yeah, that's it. That's all it was. Just girl power moment.
Yeah, girl power moment for girls to go, yeah! Do they ever do that for men? I don't think so, man. I don't know, man. Like, imagine,
if you ask them,
I guess
that's all
300.
entertainment's been for the past, 60 years. Is just men doing that, having their little manpower moment.
All right, yeah. Well, bring it back.
What do you think, Sam? You have any comment on this?
Not really. I agree with everything.
Somebody on Twitter was saying about like this, I don't recall regarding what, but it was about some movie, an old movie, and somebody said back when decisions like producerial decisions were made based on how much coke you'd had that moment. And I'm like, oh man, bring that back, please, because Joel Silver and stuff, and all those guys, from Die Hard and Predator and all those kick-ass movies. For me, the '80s, I have a little bit of an '80s fetish as well.
I can't blame you.
Yeah. But those ludicrous, super high testosterone, borderline, homoerotic movies like Tango and Cash. I was like, as a kid, I was. That's the thing that kept me going.
I mean, the only thing that it reminds me of the times before like in the 80s, like 84 and stuff like that, when we still have like the censorship on comics and shit like that. Or, had all those little ladies from the church trying to prevent everybody from having like comics.
Oh yeah, in the 50s and
like 70s, 80s, we fought through all of this. We had like the comic code out. Everything was like, hey, we could do everything we want. We had Lady Death. We had like overly sexualized comics. We had like for everything and everywhere. And now,
no,
back to
not
square
so much.
one.
Exactly. Back to square one. Exactly.
That's kind of a one strange aspect to this because in the 70s and 80s, I don't know if you guys were really into gaming at all, but if you remember the Satanic Panic and all the hubbub around hair bands and metal music, that was all the
conservative.
The religious nuts back then, man. They just they couldn't take it. And now here you are, you have a group that hates religious people doing the exact same thing. But I would say argue to a much higher degree, like worse, so much worse.
Worse because they've infiltrated all the corporate structures,
So someone could say almost cultish.
One might say. And that's the weird thing too. You'll notice a lot of people who really have a problem with religion, the ideals that they espouse, I mean, they practically become a religion in their own right.
Absolutely. Well, you have to, first of all, ascribe to the notion that the world's going to blow up in 15 years because of climate hysteria, the climate change,
Every 15 years, that's going to happen.
Every 15 years, it's going to happen. I grew up and there was they're already like pumping us with low-level propaganda about acid rain. And I was a kid, like acid rain. I was fascinated by acid rain because it just sounded so cool, like rain that like actually melted things. But I kept waiting for the acid rain, and after like 36 years of existence, nothing came about.
And then you had aerosol destroying the ozone layer.
Yeah, the
You'd
ozone
never hear
layer was a
about
big deal.
again.
You remember?
All these things
Yep.
come and go, and you never hear.
And now it's everything. And now whatever happens that, imagine there's some volcanic eruption as
Why?
happens.
Remember Y2K?
No, this is worse than Y2K. Man. But yeah, but it's true. It's been Y2K for the last 15 years, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the only difference is Y2K was almost a legitimate concern, almost, but not quite.
Exactly. You know what I think would be really funny is if everybody jumped on board this extremist, conservationist fever, and to preserve and no carbon emissions and all these things, and then all of a sudden an asteroid came and like wiped everybody out.
Yeah.
When you could have been busy plundering the planet to create like massive starships and go colonize other planets. Instead, you decided to sit around and grow cabbage farms, plantations.
Yeah, that's I don't know. I blame the internet. The internet is it's great and it's awful all at the same time.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, it's great because we're doing this, right? Imagine that. Imagine it's so cool that a guy in Portugal can be hiring people in Argentina to do a comic book to then, sell it to everybody around the planet and align himself with a movement that's I wouldn't say, is it international? Is Comicsgate international? I guess it is now.
Yes, it
Oh
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got Simon's Canadian. We got quite a few Brits.
Yeah, Canada's, you're even worse, man. Canada's like worse off than anywhere else with that nut job as president.
Yeah. Don't mention him, please.
he who shall not be named.
Sore subject.
Let's move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an enlightening conversation, I think. Yeah, I mean, the whole movement is basically just get this crap out of our entertainment, and it totally crosses over with, you have the Fandom Menace, you have Weebors, you have Gamergate. There's people in all of these industries that are just sick and tired of it, man. And that's why I think Comicsgate is so important, because it's kind of led the charge. Other people just kind of bitch and complain. Comicsgate's actually doing something about it. And that's why I don't know. I kind of put Comicsgate on a pedestal as far as all these movements are concerned, because they're actually doing something about it. And I would love to see the other movements do more as well.
But do you think that
during the Gamergate movement, there was a lot of people trying to crowdfund video games. The problem is that it became too complex and it's very like expensive, and then the projects kind of like didn't succeed.
Yeah.
There was the movie movement on Kickstarter as well, but they all got boycotted by big fucking producers coming in going, oh, but we want to crowdfund our movies too. Then that died. The thing is, movies and video games, they cost so much money to produce and requires a lot of people. Comic books is kind of like, it's like making a high budget movie at a low budget.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, comics are a lot more doable than, say, like film or video games. But I think something they could really look at on the Phantom Menace end of things is novels. A lot of people still read, believe it or not.
Yeah. But isn't it crazy, man? Just the movies are completely, it's gone. People were fapping over Top Gun 2 trailer. And I'm like, how can you have a Top Gun trailer and not have the American flag show up anywhere? That's like a glaring omission. Top Gun is the most jingoistic movie of all time. It's basically about, like, hey, look how, we're America, like, look at it, look at how awesome our military might is. And you get rid of that, you get rid of part of the appeal, to be honest with you. all those movies. I'm not American, and I loved those jingoistic. I loved having a nation to look up to as an ideal. You know what I mean?
Me too.
As something that's sort of like a moral, sorry,
Compass.
compass. Exactly. Sorry. Thank you. A moral compass for the rest of the Western world to guide itself by, even if obviously any nation is flawed and commits mistakes, especially one with imperialist leanings or size at least. But it's good to have that. I feel it sharpens your mental outlook. It doesn't create as much as much questions, like yeah, like
Yeah, it
all
is
those
good.
Vietnam movies about how America, hey, is terrible as the devil. I actually
Right.
love Platoon, and I love Born on the 4th of July. I think they're great movies, as pieces of art, but really their function, the reason for them even existing is to erode the American exceptionalist image,
Yeah, but that's become taboo. To love America has become very taboo, and that's
Yeah.
a big part of the problem. That's why you see a lot of this stuff disappearing from like Top Gun and others. I know Superman for a time pretty much denounced America to become an international agent, but yeah, they just keep pushing that narrative as well because, well, I don't really know why. I mean, I guess because if you love America, then obviously you can't have your global conspiracy.
If you love America,
Yeah, but
you can't ascribe to the global Marxist, the communist conspiracy.
do you think it's just a coincidence that many of them like express that they have a problem with the hero's journey by Campbell?
Do they have a problem with that? I wasn't
Yeah.
aware of that.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard that either.
Mm-hmm. There was the what was his name? Ryan Johnson, when he was talking about when he was doing The Last Jedi, that he was fed up of always having the hero's journey.
Well, I think his problem is he doesn't know how to write.
There's a few of them that are always expressing that part. And if you take
Well, it's because I think my interpretation of that would be that the hero's journey is associated with some kind of merit-based journey,
the one
where
hero,
where you have to sacrifice to get to transform yourself into something better, and to go endure this metamorphosis into something a higher version of yourself, and that's something completely against
that one person
the Marxist ideology.
That one person can be a hero, the hero.
Well,
Wow.
that if you have to take a journey, then obviously you can't innately just be special.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, because if everybody's special, no one really is. Remember,
Right?
Dash, and then
Oh
go.
yeah, that was Syndrome, man. I love that quote.
That's right, from The Incredibles. Yeah.
James Hayes says there are people from all over in Comicsgate of all races, religions, sexualities, and political viewpoints. I think we are more diverse naturally as a movement than the SJW's mainstream, and I would agree with that statement 100%.
Absolutely. And I've seen it. I've seen people that are, black, white, trans, and the thing is, nobody sits around saying, as a whatever. Nobody cares, here's what Comicsgate is. It sort of is a merit-based ideology. It doesn't care so much. It's more about like, oh, you're a great artist who happens to be Muslim. Then, oh, you're a Muslim who happens to be a great artist.
Right.
It's just the priorities are a little bit different.
Yeah, that's just it. Because people like us would focus on writer, whereas people like them would focus on Muslim.
Well, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, focus on the artist, but hey.
Well, we were using that example, Simon. All right.
I know, but you know what I mean. In comics, you do have people that follow the writer, some people that will follow the illustrator.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I follow everybody.
I follow a little bit of both actually, but
Me too. Like I really like Claremont. Follow him everywhere before.
Yeah, they're equally important, man. You can't tell a story
but I will.
without a writer. You can't draw a story without an artist.
It's true, but I will say this: if the writer's on his A game and the artist not so much, you can still enjoy the comic. Where the reverse isn't always true,
Uh,
it's where the art is amazing and the story's a disaster.
I could say there's many artists that tell story without writers.
It is true that I actually admire artists more, probably because I'm a writer and I couldn't draw I can't draw like a stick figure to save my life. So I admire them more. But yeah, I don't know. Like I've always followed more writers than I have artists, but it's a little bit of a mix. It's like
But I
it's
do
like
agree that people need to respect writers a bit more. Show them, they bring something extra. Like, come on, we mastered the illustration. Writers master the writing, the words, the wording, how to phrase stuff. It's the same thing that the unsung hero that people forget it all the time. It's the editor.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I mean, I would say a story is probably the most important part. But I would also say that if you have an artist, like you said, Simon, that's capable of telling that story through the art, then a lot of times a good artist can really make up for a crappy writer.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
but I've heard both positions. I've heard Eric Larson, for example, was having this debate on Twitter, and I think maybe because he's an artist, he actually thinks that the artist is more important because in his mind they're the director of photography, the everything, and the writer's just the screenplay, the screenwriter. But to me, it's not necessarily the case because there's only one person that could come up with Savage Dragon, the story for Savage Dragon, and that's Eric Larson. And there's multiple people that could draw Savage Dragon. Maybe not exactly the same way as Eric Larson, but
yeah. But if you get a shitty artist, right?
mm-hmm.
Your story, your writing could be awesome, but if I look at the book, I don't buy it.
It's true.
So I won't read it.
That is true. And this is kind of a rabbit hole that we go down, which is more important. But I would argue that they're equally important.
Cheers to that.
Mm-hmm. But they each serve their purpose. It's the same thing as I was saying. Like you have the architect and you have the engineer. They can each do the job, but they work better when they put them together.
Right.
Yep.
It's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Somebody just lit up. I heard that.
I'm going to blame Simon.
I love how we all have our vices,
Well, you guys were supposed to keep talking.
Okay. Yeah, but just to say that I should probably get back to my tales for the classroom, and then we can get to some other projects.
But you have to understand that Eric Larson comes from the point that he writes and draws his own stuff, but he started as an artist that was told that could not write, and he started writing when he was doing, I think, Spider-Man on his side too, when McFarlane was doing his Spider-Man.
I love Eric Larson, even though he's a massive SJW, and ideologically I'm totally against him, and he's also a bit of a prick on Twitter.
Yep, I agree 100% what you just said.
But he's an amazing artist. I think he's better technically than McFarlane. He's a little bit of a McFarlane copycat, but like he perfected. He had his own thing, and when the Image launch books came out, by far my favorite was Savage Dragon. More so than Spawn, more so than any of the other ones. What was the other ones? It was Wildcats,
Cyberforce.
Yep. Cyberforce.
Those were my favorites.
The Wildcats and Cyberforce?
Wildcats, Cyberforce. Then after that, there was the second wave where you had a Pit, which was awesome.
Pit was cool. Pit was awesome, man. Pit was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Max Image or no?
It was part of the second wave when they brought in Death Blow, did the darker image thing. So you had Death Blow, the Max, and Blood Wolf, whatever it was.
I
The
don't recall
the
that one.
the Rub Liefeld Lobo.
Okay.
Now, Jason Black says, I don't know why we have to have this conversation. Bad artists and writers shouldn't have been a thing. We've been reading Marvel and DC so long, we think we only get one sometimes. And he's got a point.
Yep.
Joe Fraugo says, tell Rob I said he is handsome.
Thank you. So is he. I like that picture.
Yeah, the top hat and monocle really sets it off.
It really works, man. And not everybody can rock it.
No, for sure. But yeah, Fraugo really pulls it off. Such a happy looking dude, isn't he?
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So why don't you throw us the pitch for this one more time?
All right,
And
so it's set in a world where only monsters exist. Humans don't exist. We're the figments of their imagination. And it's a high school tale. It's about this teenage zombie named Rob Muerto. As you can see my name. I borrowed my name from my own protagonist, which is an extra level of narcissistic. But
I'm going to play the video on silent while you go over this.
And what happens is that so it opens in this place called Romero High, which is school, all zombie high school. And there he's the most popular kid around. He's worshipped by all the zombie boys, and all the zombie chicks are completely in love with him. The teachers let him get away with everything. He's the Ferris Bueller of zombies. And then one day his dad gets the opportunity to go up a step in his career. He's a janitor, and he gets to be the head janitor somewhere else. And he has a little family reunion, and the kids are like, and Rob is so cocky. He's like, yeah, whatever, let's just move towns. How hard can it be? And he transfers over to this multi-species high school named Cthulhu High. And he realizes that zombies are treated as second-class citizens and just completely disregarded as dummies, and there's the bottom of the social hierarchy, bottom of the rung. And it's about him trying to overcome that, go up a few steps, and at the same time he gets on the radar of this guy named Drake, who's a vampire, and makes his, as we said before, his undeath miserable. Not his life, his undeath miserable. And he has to deal with that. He also befriends this guy named Eddie the Wolfman, who's sort of like this 90s slacker type, a Gen Xer type. A little out of his time, but I think he's a cool archetype to put in there. The joint smoking, skateboarding,
I like him already.
Nirvana. Oh, that's him right there. That's him. Can we go over some of the pinups?
Oh, of course.
I don't know which part it was.
What's happening over here, just to give you some context to what you were seeing up there, is that so in his first night of school in Cthulhu, he forgets, not he forgets, but he opens up his fridge. He's late for school, and he opens up his fridge where usually there's a brain milkshake, a brain shake there for him to as a pick-me-up. But it's not there in the fridge. Something happened, and he's so late, he just goes into the school bus anyway. And when zombies go for a certain period of time without eating brains, they enter this sort of semi-catatonic state where they it's the thing you see in movies where they go,
Right.
So that's what happens to him halfway through the journey to the school. And he shows up to class super late and just groaning and drooling and going brains, which is the only thing he can say. And Eddie, helps him out basically, takes him to the cafeteria for a pick me up and spares him the humiliation. Well, further humiliation.
Right. So you got some pinups attached.
That's the cafeteria lady, Charlene, who's an ogre.
Oh, she's kind of hot. In a Gail Simone kind of way.
Oh, yeah. That's harsh, man. But this might make you go viral. Who knows?
I doubt it.
What happened to you, Red?
A lot of things, but we're not here to talk about me, Simon.
Oh, and the pinups. Sorry. So we were going to go through the pinups. If you scroll down a little bit, all this stuff, by the way, I spoke with John Mallon and yesterday on a live stream, and he had some really nice advice to give me. And he thinks, and I tend to agree with him. And if whatever he says is law, as far as I'm concerned, with campaign with crowdfunding campaigns, he thinks there's a lot of fluff in here. You know, like the character bios need to go. People don't give a shit about that. They just they look at the images. Do I like it? Do I not? Okay. They don't go through.
I'm going to be completely honest. I would disagree with that. I like the character bios.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Would you take the time to read them? But you're a writer. That's why.
That could be why. What do you think, Simon? What do you think about the character bios?
Hold on. Let me go to them. I don't think it's a bad thing. It depends of how many. The thing is that he has a lot of stuff. Like you have a few pages.
Yeah, and I think
so it's more about streamlining it. So he's probably saying like, you know, it's not that it's a bad thing. That's not people are gonna like it. It's just that right now it's what's the least interesting from what's there. Because I'd rather have sequential art already done with bubbles, and you have quite a few there, right?
Yeah, I would say
five pages.
I would say you set up the page correctly, where the sequential art comes first, followed by the character bios. And maybe one thing you might want to think about is shrinking these down. So when you're scrolling over it, you might get 4 to 6 on a page.
Might be maybe unite them, Harry.
Put them on one page. Yeah, that's a good idea.
So it's one continuous. So there's no break over there. Is that what you mean?
No. You put like 2 rows. You put them in rows of 2.
Yeah, just put them side by side. So when you're scrolling over this page, you'll see like 4 of them rather than like 1.5. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to try the Malin way anyway for a couple of. The good thing is that you can keep rearranging, you know,
right,
and to see what works more. And I'm going to give the Malin. Obviously, I have to give it a shot because you know.
Oh, don't feel pressured.
No, it's not about pressured. It's like I don't know. It's like Spielberg telling you should frame something a certain way, and you go, think about it. Okay, so the crew, you get to. Here's why I'm called Rob Muerto, by the way, is that initially I was going to go with the whole thing of pretending I am the character, you know. And doing just pretending that the book was actually written by the character.
Gotcha.
And I built an Instagram account that is totally framed from that standpoint. All the posts are supposed to be like personal posts, and all the text is as if I was actually the character. But then I realized, this live stream thing is an essential thing to get your book out there and to publicize it, and I have to show my face eventually. And I only sound a little bit like a zombie. Yeah, so sorry, the team. Sebastian Bernico, amazing. It's crazy that just out of chance, like 3 of my dudes are Argentinian. I keep saying they must put something in the water there because there's so many talented Argentinian everything, not just artists, not just pencilers. There's colorists.
One of my favorite artists is from there. 2 of them. Eduardo Rizzo.
Oh yeah, he's really good.
And Juan Jimenez and Red. Guess what he did?
Blood Hunt.
Meta Baron.
Of
course. It's been a while since I've heard that.
But of course.
What is that? Is that an inside joke? I'm not a.
It's
is
an
it?
inside joke, but it's one of my favorite books that I keep recommending to everybody.
Ah, okay.
In the earlier days when I've first met Simon, well, maybe a little after that, every day this guy's on Metabaron. Every single day.
Everybody, every time we talk about comics, it's like, yeah, Meta Baron. It's like my favorite. It's like one of my favorite.
Meta-Baron. I love the name almost immediately. Meta-Baron.
Yeah, it's by Alejandro. Fuck.
Oh, wow. That's
Alejandro.
great, man.
It's by Alejandro Jodorowsky and Juan Jimenez.
Meta-Baron.
I
But
did
why
it
do I
again.
put, listen, you're so obsessed with this that I put Meta-Baron on Google and it goes straight to Blood Hunt.
That should tell you all you need to know.
That's the first result in it.
Listen,
Shows
here's
up.
the thing. We're not here to talk about Metabaron. We're here to talk about Tales from the Classroom.
No, but it looks great. This Meta-Baron looks great, man. Wow. This is a hardcover?
Yeah, you could get the Meta Barons as one big cover. You get all the series in it.
And Professor X does a cameo, I see. All right, that's cool. I'll check it out, man. It looks really cool.
All right, Simon, you've successfully derailed the stream. Let's talk about these pinups.
All right. So these pinups were. Here's my major mistake my main mistake that I did with promoting this comic book is I got confused by this guy that did Icarus and the Sun. And the way that, you know what Icarus and the Sun is? It's like the third most sold comic on Indiegogo. And why? Because he has a huge Instagram account. So I figured, maybe if I invest in Instagram, that's the way to go. So I racked up a lot of followers and I put up quite a bit of a good chunk of change in ads and Instagram ads to get the account to a good spot. And I commissioned these pinups for these promotional purposes, but also in the future, when the actual book was out, as it is now, I'll use them as part of the perk packages. You know, you get these and other that are not featured here. These pinups printed in high res, glossy, looking really good, sort of like big versions of trading cards. Something for you to. I think it's cool. It's like a collectible.
Yeah, I know pinups are pretty popular among the Comicsgate crowd.
So that's how they came about. And this one in particular is just a school random class photo, and you see Rob, who's the blue-eyed zombie with the throat gash. That's the main protagonist, and Eddie, who's almost a co-protagonist. He's that relevant and has that much screen time.
He's got charisma.
Yeah, that's Eddie, the guy with the drumsticks, the Wolfman. Underneath him is Sanchez the Chupacabra. And
that's good. I don't feel there's enough Chupacabra representation in Comicsgate.
There isn't, no. And he's wearing one of those what do you call it? Ponchos?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. You know I'm gonna get stick for that.
Well, at least you didn't put a sombrero on him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Then there's Eliza and Drake and Joshua the Golem. You see the Golem, but he does have a kippa.
I see that.
You see that? I might get some stick for that as well because he keeps saying chutzpah and all these really funny Yiddish expressions.
Hey, if George Lucas can survive the Gungan Jamaican scandal, I think you'll be all right.
Dude, that's crazy. Yeah. He can survive anything. He can survive the prequels. Yeah, that's just a funny little thing, like of him working out and then he loses his leg. and the Instagram thing, it says, "Pro tip to all my zombie peeps: never skip leg day."
Can you just pop it back in?
Yeah, you can stitch it back up, which is what his mom keeps doing.
Yeah. Do zombies brush their
Oh,
teeth?
there's sorry,
Do zombies brush their teeth?
brush their teeth. It's up to their discretion, but this thing over here is when they don't have brains, they enter that state I told you about, and that's what's happening here.
Oh, gotcha. That happens to Simon a lot, by the way.
Does it?
It's usually when you first wake up.
Yeah. I remember that stream when I woke up in the woke show and I just thought out. I did sound like a zombie a bit.
I'm assuming this is the gym teacher.
That's the coach, yeah, PE coach, Coach Frank. I love how, like, if he does a push-up, his chest is gone, and if you notice, there's a hole in his chest from doing the push-up.
Yeah. Oh, that's touching.
That's his family. That's Melvin, his dad, Mary Jo, and Mickey, his younger brother, and his dog, Necro.
That's a very diverse family.
Yeah, well, yeah. I had to get the voodoo thing, a nod to the voodoo thing, you know.
And why the 19?
Pardon?
Why 19?
Because it's 2019.
You guys don't do that in Canada?
It dates.
Yeah, usually it's at the end, not in the beginning. That's why I was wondering if there was something.
Yeah, it's that's Sebastian. It must be an Argentinian thing. You know?
Blame the Argentinian.
Blame Argentina. They're not getting their dates properly. This pinup is actually amazing. It's as a wallpaper, it's incredible. It's in high res, but you know we have resolution limitations on Indiegogo. So
Is that a sun or a nuke?
it's a very powerful sun.
It's like he's watching a nuke just coming at him. Like, yep,
Yeah.
shit's going to hell now.
And this is the kind of the idea is that this is the kind of scenery that zombies find beyond beautiful, like a gorgeous landfill. This is the sort of stuff that they like to hang around in, you know. The dirtier, the better for them. Oh, and that's done. Sorry, there's just a little bit more background. This is done actually by the guy, the penciler, that did Monster MD, who's amazing, Marco McCagney.
Oh, nice. Very cool. I like the touch in this one with the eyes in the ceiling.
Yeah, the big selling point for me over here is the pencils are great, obviously, but the colors are insane, and the colors are also from a Monster MD's colorist, who's some kind of prodigy, but super elusive. You know, I managed to get her to do 2 pinups, and then she just dropped off the radar. Well, she's doing Monster MD, so she's busy. But yeah. Tanya Wicker is her name. And if you go down, you're going to see a glass vial over there that may or may not be a bong.
Simon, can we get your expert opinion?
Definitely a bong.
You know, it's funny. I put this on Instagram, and I created a character account for Eddie as well. And so they comment like they have like little repartee between Rob and Eddie. and Eddie says like, dude, when was this? I don't even remember. And I replied as Rob, like #wasted. And Instagram censored that. Isn't it crazy, man?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what they choose to censor and not censor these days.
Yeah. This is done by Tad Lambert, who does the supplemental story that is going to feature in the book if we make it to 3,000. So
and
guys,
you will
get in on that. And he put this together. I think so. You know, obviously, I came up with the idea, and he executed it brilliantly. But the really touch of genius is the wooden planks, the wooden boards on the wall,
Oh yeah.
the skeletons. I think that's such a great touch. And he's doing all the environmental development for Cthulhu, because that's not something I really thought out properly
Yeah.
the first time around, and that's something that I really want to delve into. And he did Principal Kong's office, and he's doing some other things, but you're going to see Principal Kong's office next. And it's too bad about the low resolution on this, but I'm really happy with what he did, because he incorporated the elements of jungle theme. There's jungle elements, obviously. The zebra curtains and
Right.
just the African.
Oh, you and your stereotypes, man.
But there's also, because Principal Kong inherited the school from Professor Kane Cthulhu, who's obviously a nod to Cthulhu. You can't see it here, but there's like a symbol with an octopus. There's a nod to that, and also you see the light fixtures. They're holding on to like a semi-tentacle looking thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the actual balusters, the wooden rail, which may not be wooden, but the railing is also a tentacle.
You got a combo, yeah, and you can kind of see up here the
Cthulhu.
We got Sketch Therapy in the house. What's up, my man? He says there's a lot of monsters. Monster MD, Doc Savage is Monster Doctor, and Graveyard Shift Oddity makes for great crossover possibilities.
I think so. I actually came up with an idea that I think might be cool to do crossovers between Comicsgate characters that would be fun, which is they enter this multi-dimensional portal, right? Called Comicsgate. It's the Comicsgate,
Right.
And that's it as far as pinups go. That's it.
Cool, man. Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for crossovers. I know there's a lot of projects kind of lend themselves to crossing over with other projects, and I think that would be cool to see more of that in the future. Because we do. I mean, we've already got a good bit of it going on.
That's it. Like Monster MD is actually doing one with Rob Willis's Samurai Shinobi
Sasquatch. Yep.
Dude, Rob Willis is some kind of genius.
Yeah, where'd that guy come from?
Came out of nowhere to revolutionize.
He could have single-handedly saved Image Comics.
Yeah, of course, man. He should be exactly. He should be like some kind of. He'd revolutionize. He'd give a new, new energy, re-energize Image Comics or something like that, because he draws from like Dale Keown and all these. Dale Keown did the Pit? No.
Yep.
Was that the Pit?
Yep.
Yeah, he's totally
Hulk.
It's like a mix. He's like a mix between that and who would I say? He's also got some Sam Keith going on. It's but he's amazing, man. He's really technically he's like off the charts. And I commissioned him to do the boots for Coach Frank. So I'm very excited to see what he comes up with.
That's cool, man.
Because I wasn't happy with the boots. It's too bare boned. I want something like super out there. I want something that's sort of like a steampunk Chris Spatulo fever dream, full of interlocking tubes and pipes and circuitry and steam coming out of it. Right. The most, the most uncumbersome thing of all time to like have on your feet, which is funny for like a gym coach to have, So he's in a tracksuit and then he has like the least comfortable pair of boots.
These big ass heavy boots.
He can barely move. But yeah, I find that image funny. So he's doing that, and also like he's Comicsgate, and I think it's good for us to support each other,
Yeah, for sure, man. All right, we should probably wrap this up shortly. I am scheduled to be on with Lethal Lightning in about 45 minutes. So everybody run over and check out Lethal Lightning. Subscribe if you are not subscribed. And yeah, if you haven't backed Tales from the Classroom, check it out, man. If you are unable to back financially, social media shares always help very much, especially Twitter. Facebook's not really that much of a thing at the moment for this kind of thing, but yeah, retweets are extremely helpful.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for that, anybody who does it. And Simon, since you're here, buddy, I want to give you.
Sorry, can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a special promotion out for all the people that get the book. Well, not all the people, but the next 17 people, because the promotion was originally 20. They get a special pinup like the one you saw with Principal Kong's office. They get a special pinup with by Tad Lambert with the location of the high school of Cthulhu, done by him. I think it's
Awesome.
a pretty cool thing to have. So like the next 17 people that get the book will get that, plus everybody else that supported it prior.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, if you want to be part of that 17, get on board.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Simon, I'm gonna give you a chance to pimp out Blood Hunt a little bit, which I know a lot of times you're hesitant to do, but do it anyway.
So yeah, go check out Blood Hunt, the most badass assassin vampire in comics. Witness his betrayal and the fall into the bloodlust and his quest for vengeance. And trust me, it is marvelous from page 1 to 64. Bloody gore from the beginning to the end.
Non-stop action.
Yep. And no porn, but titties.
It looks great, man. It actually looks really great.
Thanks.
The only thing I think looks better is Meta Baron.
Oh no.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Well, on that note, you both of you can go to hell. No, I'm kidding. Rob, thanks for coming by, man. It was great having you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Of course.
I'm going to start my own channel, so like hopefully we can do this, but like on the other, like I'll be the interviewer and you be the interviewee. You guys,
Anytime.
if you're open for it.
Cool, man. Yeah, of course.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Simon, thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody in the chat for coming by. We appreciate each and every one of you. And yeah, go back these books. I'm going to put the link for Tales from the Classroom is in the description and in the chat, I'm sure, with James Hayes. He's got Blood Hunt up there as well, and that will go in the chat or in the description also. So yeah, thanks for coming by, guys, and we will see you on the next one.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Peace.